and welcome to 50 Movies in 50 Weeks. I'm your host, Joey Hollywood, and I'm trying to get through all 50 movies in this 50 movie box set from Mill Creek in 50 weeks. The movie I watched today was called Alien Species from the year 1996. For those of you who've been watching a while, you know that I go into all of these Mill Creek movies completely blind, and then as it goes on, I either research it afterwards or during the movie if it's boring enough. So when this movie first came on, I was not expecting CGI. It's a 90s movie. I wasn't expecting a 90s movie. I was like, wow, I don't think we've ever had a 90s movie on here. Well, I think Brain Twisters might have been, but that might have been 80s. That was like over 3 years ago, so who knows at this point. This is partly why I wanted to get this box set instead of one of the more known ones, instead of some of the Mill Creek box sets that are still in circulation today, because this is just such a weird little oddity that's like nowhere else. I can actually talk about like strange things in it, like the fact that it is a 90s movie on one of these box sets is very out of the norm. This movie looks like, for those of you who are aficionados in bad movies, this looks like one of the late 90s, early 2000s full moon movies from Charles Band. It has that kind of energy to it, and the opening shot of the movie is straight up ripping off Independence Day with the saucers flying towards Earth. And at the beginning, I thought that's what kind of movie this was going to be. I thought it was going to be a cheapo, low-budget Independence Day ripoff. And that's really not what it is. This movie is kind of a mix between The Twilight Zone and The X-Files. There's a lot of like moments too in the movie where like you can tell that the whole movie's filmed on what looks like a consumer-grade camera, so it looks extra cheap. But there's like a Mulder and Scully type characters in this. They don't really have a whole lot of influence on the plot, but we cut back to them a lot, especially in the beginning of the movie. As far as I can tell, there's only one real like name actor in the movie, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's the warden in Ernest Goes to Jail, which he's been in much better and more famous movies than that, but for some reason, when I see his face, that's the movie I think of. And he plays a sheriff in this movie, which I think he always plays a sheriff. He's just got a sheriff face about him. Like I said, there's an alien invasion about to happen. It starts off with them stealing cows, like abducting cows. And the special effects in it are so like quaint. It reminds me of early YouTube, like YouTube poops. But this was probably like really, really cool for like the time that they were making this. It was like, what, 1996? A low budget movie like this. This was probably like a little bit of a novelty. It was definitely not a good movie, but it's interesting. And while I can't say that this was an amazing movie, there were interesting elements about it, so much so that I went and looked at the director, and it kind of all made sense, because this is the director of the full motion video scenes in Phantasmagoria, which is pretty cool. Let me make sure which Phantasmagoria. I believe it's the first one. Apparently I didn't put which Phantasmagoria, but it's from one of the Phantasmagoria movie directors. The movie really kicks off when our sheriff puts a bunch of prisoners on a bus for a prisoner transfer. You won't know this, but that took me 7 times to say that. I don't know why. I'm having a hard time. Maybe I'm having a stroke. Who knows? But that's when the movie really kicks off. There's a storm, and the people on the bus run into a couple women whose car's broken down, and there's debate on whether they should get in the bus with them, because it's kind of illegal to pick up hitchhikers when you're doing a prisoner transfer. But then the alien invasion happens, and there's questions on who's really an alien. It kind of reminds me of that episode of The Twilight Zone, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? It has shades of that, shades of the X-Files for sure. And I said this movie looks cheap, especially with the consumer-grade cameras, but there's some pretty impressive on-screen effects. Like there's a car that explodes. If this was filmed on not even 35 millimeter, if this was filmed on 16 millimeter, it would look pretty fantastic. I'm going to feel very foolish if this was filmed on film and it was just edited on VHS. But it looks like VHS. It looks really bad, and it kind of brings down what you would think to be the quality of the movie. But this kind of stuff really captures my attention. I've always loved. I always called it shot on shitty movies. I did a couple series back in the day where I reviewed a bunch of David Sterling movies, which are like kind of the bottom of the barrel worst movies you can imagine, but I kind of love them. And this kind of fits snugly in that area, but it's a little bit more elevated because there's a lot more ingenuity and imagination brought to the table here. I'm probably overselling it. This kind of bad movie just really hits my fancy. So take my recommendation with a grain of salt here. Near the end of the movie, they're all in like a car trying to get away from the aliens, and the windows of the car are totally like green screened. It looks really embarrassing, but charming at the same time. It's who do you trust? The movie tries to throw everything at the wall to see what sticks. Very little does. I will say the ending's a little underwhelming, but I don't feel like that should be much of a surprise. But like I said, the director of this also did Phantasmagoria, and I tried to see like what else was related to this, and IMDb, this is IMDb for the trivia, said, according to IMDb, this movie was referenced in Bareback Twink Pack from 2006. So this movie had a cultural impact. So that's kind of all I have to say about it. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely, especially since the last 3 years, we've watched so many of, I don't want to say bad movies, but so many of the same kind of movie where everything kind of blurs into one. And so far we had, last week we had a canon movie. This week we have a shot on shitty movie. Next week, who knows what we're going to have. I'm having a blast with this box set, and I think we're in for a pretty good year. We're only 2 weeks in, and it's already been a lot of fun. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. Remember, please be kind and rewind.